Hi there and big welcome to a cEDH deck tech video for Niv-Mizzet Reborn. However, first we need to talk about Niv-Mizzet a little bit in general first. It's not truly a typical cEDH commander that you think of. Now the normal game plan is food chain, however the big reason why no one is playing Niv-Mizzet is because the first sliver is a much better food chain commander. Now the other option is Blink. You're playing things like Meal the Blessed and you generate infinite mana and then you flicker Niv-Mizzet infinitely, and that's another trick. However, in the end, it's also not that great of a game plan. The basic answer is that there are a lot of other commanders that are doing the exact same thing as Niv-Mizzet, but in general better. However, I have actually found a perfect commander deck where Niv-Mizzet is probably the best commander option for that deck. And here is that deck with Cantrip the Returned King as the commander. Now this is a Cantrip control Cantrip build with the main plan of Underworld Breach. We wanna sit here and interact with cantrips, therefore cards that cast them, they do something cool, and then you draw a card. For example, this Hallowed Moonlight. If a creature would enter the battlefield this turn and it wasn't casted, exile it instead and draw a card. This is basically a different version to Containment Priest. Aura Blast, a big favorite of mine, 2 mana instant, destroy target enchantment and draw a card. Shadow of Doubt, 2 mana hybrid Demir, players can't search libraries this turn and draw a card. I'm also gonna throw in Opposition Agent as a cantrip control because you're gaining a form of value by interacting here. Someone is casting a demonic tutor, you cast Op Agent and you gain something for it. But why bother? Why not play cheaper, better, blue counterspells? Well, they don't draw any cards. And that's a problem. Well, we are playing a few of these, like Fluster and Mental Misstep is in the deck, not Swansong though. However, the thing is that with these counterspells is that you're going down in resources. If you're gonna sit here and try to play a control game plan versus 3 opponents, you're gonna run out of resources trying to interact with everyone. However, if you're playing a cantrip interaction, you're gaining some value yourself, which means that you're going plus minus 0. When you're interacting with a Flusterstorm, you're going minus in hand size. In the long run, that will drain you. But another cool thing with cantrip control cards is that they are fueling the graveyard. By you drawing cards, you're digging through the deck to eventually perform a form of combo with Underworld Breach. Not a turbo breach, but more of a control breach. However, after playing this deck for a while, I realized that I'm never really casting Cantrip. He's basically just there for color identity. Then I thought, is there a better option potentially? Could we have another 5-color commander that would give something to this strategy? And tada! Niv-Mizzet was reborn! So if you're casting Niv-Mizzet, something in the game has basically gone wrong. Maybe you want a 6/6 flying blocker to protect you from someone who's very evil, or you want to put pressure on someone. Or there's like hate bear stacks effects in play, you've been interacted with and you can't really win. And Niv-Mizzet is a huge burst of card draw here. And to stay on theme, he is actually a cantrip. You cast him and you gain cards to your hand. But this is truly a non-centric commander, really efficient 99 that is just playing a really good game in general. However, we have to play multicolored cards, but for example, Shadow of Doubt is a perfect example of what this deck is looking for. It has 2 colors, so you can hit it with your commander, and it's on theme with what this deck is trying to do. Interact and gain value, staying net positive during the control gameplay. We have Notion Thief, that's a great way to interact. Deathrite Shaman can be hit with Kolgari, color identity. We have Fire Covenant, Rakdos multicolored card. Now this is not a cantrip, you don't draw any cards, you don't gain any form of real value. However, it's able to destroy and interact with multiple cards. So it's great for card economy, and that's exactly what this control game plan is looking for. Abrupt Decay, pretty much auto included, we're definitely gonna play this, not a cantrip, but you wanna have it in your deck. Dovian's Fitu, I personally love this one a lot. And the list goes on of cool cards we have inside this deck. But now we need to talk about something really important. You see, there's a potential deck building trap you could accidentally get into here. You see, there's a chance of getting overboard, and you might look for more synergy, more two multicolored cards that you want to have inside this deck, because they're gonna function great if you're casting your commander for that huge card draw potential. For example, you might want to add Astra Oddsmaker, which honestly could be great for this deck. It's not in my list, but you could have it if you want to. However, there's this potential trap. You see, Astra Oddsmaker isn't like the greatest card in the entire world. It's functional pretty good with this game plan, drawing cards and dumping them into your grave for that Underworld Breach combo. But what you might accidentally do here is add a bunch of bad cards that will be good if they synergize with the commander. But this was a non-commander focused deck to begin with. We are not really casting Niv-Mizzet, or well, we are casting Niv-Mizzet if we have nothing better to do, if you have too much mana and, well, we have to spend it on something. But instead of trying to make the synergy with this guy as good as we can, we should try to make the deck play as greatly as possible and try to have a little bit of synergy with cards that are individually good on their own without this guy, that will synergize with this guy as well. So once again, this is what we're looking for. And we do have a bunch of really solid, typical cEDH cards. Cooling Ritual, we have a Manamorphous, Abrupt Decay, Assassin's Trophy, I already mentioned Abrupt Decay actually. But as you can see, I'm not going completely overboard on the multicolored stuff here. And I am playing a whole bunch of mono-colored cards as well. Because in the end, mono blue counterspells are pretty good. But I'm also playing a few cycling cards, for example Starstorm. I truly like this card because of its instant speed, capability of getting rid of hate bears. Like, you can kill all hate bears on the board state by usually paying 4 mana, sometimes 5, but yeah, usually 4. However, if you don't need it, you can just pay 3 mana and drop it to the grave, which is where we want it, usually, for that Underworld Breach combo later, but then drawing a card, digging through the deck. This is basically a cheaper Thrasius activation for 3 mana instead of 4. Or well, you're not scrying, but yeah, you're getting the point. But this entire deck is filled with various cycling cards. For example, you can cast Shadow of Doubt if you just want to draw a card for 2 mana, which is basically the same amount of mana you pay for a cycling card in general. And this is why this deck never really want to cast its commander, because you're always able to draw cards anyways. If someone is trying to win, you interact with them by casting these spells and draw cards. If no one is doing anything, everyone is just passing in a turn cycle, you can still cast these cards or cycle these cards to keep on digging through the deck. So the deck actually plays really similar to a Thrasius Triton hero without having a Thrasius Triton hero in play. So the usual way of playing this deck is basically have Niv-Mizzet hanging in the command zone, draw a card, put a land into play and pass turn, and make your opponent quite confused of what are you actually up to. You're not really doing anything except interacting and drawing cards. So that takes us to how we actually end the game. Well, I've already mentioned Underworld Breach. You have this card called Lion's Eye Diamond and Brain Freeze. So if the game have gotten quite long or longer, you have a bunch of cards in your grave and you have a bunch of mana. Let's say you have a tutor in your grave, or let's say you have a tutor in your hand. You tutor for the Underworld Breach and you cast the Underworld Breach, and with the remaining mana you recast the tutor for either Brain Freeze or Lion's Eye Diamond, depending on kind of what you need. And then you gain the mana to recast the tutor a third time, acquiring Brain Freeze. Now, when you cast Brain Freeze, you're gonna trigger Storm, you're gonna have a lot of copies of Brain Freeze that you're gonna target yourself to mill more cards that you can use to recast Lion's Eye Diamond to acquire more mana, to recast Brain Freeze to mill yourself even more, until you have no deck remaining. And that is where you cast Thassa's Oracle and win the match. You cast this from the graveyard, by the way. As always, deck list in the description below of the video if you want to take a look at exactly card by card in detail how I've put this one together. But I do think that you can experiment quite a lot with the cards you want to include, depending on what form of style you want to tweak it towards. Because you can include more multicolored cards or less multicolored cards, depending on how much you think you want to utilize Niv-Mizzet in this form of way. For example, I've included both Kroxa and Uro because sometimes you go to a beatdown game plan, and these guys are great with the kind of game plan we're on. Now, we're not really playing them for like the big power and toughness. We're playing Kroxa for the everyone discards a card of our opponents, and Uro for drawing a card and basically putting a land into play. It's a more expensive growth spiral. But well, if you go to a really long game, you're not able to get your underworld breach in play, you can get them back from the grave to go in the beatdown game, if so to say. But also, if you want to take a look at this game in action, I have a gameplay video uploaded on my cEDH TV gameplay YouTube channel. Trying to go for a more educational approach, narrating the match and talking about my thought process during the video. Normally cEDH matches are quite fast, but this game took 3 hours to play, but don't worry, the video is somewhere around 18 minutes. But it really showcases in detail how this deck kinda plays out. I will end this video with the final words that I've said before in previous videos, that I never really build the deck with the commander in focus. I play it with the game plan and the combo in focus, and then I choose the best suitable commander for that specific game plan. And I think Niv-Mizzet, with his Cantrip control, where you're not really trying to utilize your commander at all, you just want 5 color identity for all the best potential cards, then Niv-Mizzet is actually pretty attractive. But because for only 5 mana, you can get a lot of value for just that. Because when you truly compare Niv-Mizzet to Cantrip, for Cantrip, it's 9 mana to draw 1 card compared to Niv-Mizzet, 5 mana to, well, sometimes draw 0, but sometimes you can draw like 4 cards with this dragon. So there's some great gas potential in this Firemind. Thank you so much for watching, stay safe guys.